Welcome, my friends. Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday, July 22nd. Frappy high day, everybody. It's a freaky free-for-all Friday. Anything goes today. If you have a question, a comment, a topic, pick up the phone and join me. Phone lines are open right now, so if you want to start dialing, you can. And if you do, I promise you'll get through. 855-950-3835. I wasn't sure if we had Joel today or not, but I guess we do. I looked up and he's on the board. I'm pretty sure we're going to be getting John in today. So we're just... I got a ton of notes here, all kinds of weird, I guess it's a good thing for a Freaky Friday, all kinds of weird things that I just haven't got to on my other shows. We'll see if we get to them today or not. Let's find out what's going on with Joel today. Joel, welcome back.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Where are you today?
Sitting in the backyard with the dog.
Oh, there you go. That sounds good.
I'm actually home.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
So
Hard to beat.
This is how things change on a Friday. Yesterday, I thought we had John for sure. We weren't sure about you. Now we have you for sure, but John can't make it.
No, wonderful.
Yeah. Or here's the message I got. He had something come up with a customer. So I don't know if he's
gotcha.
Might be in here later. Doesn't sound like it. So we'll have to do it without him today. What's on your mind this week? I got a whole bunch of weird stuff, just stuff I want to talk about. But what's on your mind first?
Oh, I've got a ton of trucking-related stuff since I missed last week. And, you know, with the big jamboree out in Iowa, some of the guys that I have running the iTorque spec trucks out on the road, they're starting to accumulate some miles, and I've got some updates on that. I have some updates in regards to, I kind of want to clarify the difference between a downsped powertrain and gearing to run and direct. They are not the same thing, and I kind of wanted to explain the differences between the two. Also, I had a very interesting conversation with one of the data scientists at Volvo, and he's the one that kind of broke the topography apart in the United States. And I've got some great ability to match certain areas of the country, and then the average as a whole, and it's kind of eye-opening.
Oh, cool.
So that will be interesting to talk to. And we had talked about this before, that we took this data, and when we decided to really get aggressive with the downsped gearing, we wanted the top three gears to kind of mesh with what we were seeing in regards to average terrain and gradability. And so this kind of ties all that together. So instead of just down speeding an engine to downspeed it, we kind of had a goal in mind, I guess you could say, to work towards to kind of figure out what's optimal in the most possible circumstances you can be optimal.
Right.
So that being able to be diverse and adaptable is very important. And this will shed a little bit of light on that, I think, also. And the last thing I really want to touch on again is, I keep hearing guys that want to take, and I'm gonna pick on Cummins just for a minute here. They want to take the 1850 565 Cummins and downspeed it. There are multiple reasons why that's not a good idea. The biggest reason being it doesn't make a lot of torque and horsepower down low. So a lot of people have come back to me recently and said, "Oh, PACCAR and Cummins, they make torque at 900 RPM." When you start digging that apart, they do have engines that make torque at 900 RPM, but it's typically between 1450 and 1650 RPM. The 565 Cummins doesn't start to make peak torque to 1,000. My D13 TC makes peak torque at 900 RPM. I make 1,900 pound-feet, and I actually have more horsepower at 900 RPM than what that 565 Cummins has.
Right.
And in order to get to that 565 horsepower, you've got to run out the 1,625 RPM to get there, which goes completely against all the gearing you're trying to accomplish to be downsped. So essentially, you'd be speccing a truck to be downsped and then running it out of the efficiency range to get to the horsepower. This is why the OEMs will not sell these types of setups to you, because they just do not make sense. And
here's what I don't get. Here's what I don't get. Let's go back to the early 2000s. And what I kept hearing from OEMs was gear fast, run slow. That was the push in early 2000s. Gear fast, run slow. And it never worked. You know, we kept doing it, and it just didn't work. And now it turns out we understand why. They weren't giving us engine architecture that fit that.
Yes. And those pictures I sent you, I'm hoping really can demonstrate what we're talking about. I know I talk about this, and trying to imagine this in your mind, if you're not familiar with it, can be pretty tough. So the one picture I showed you shows a short connecting rod, and then the other one shows the long connecting rod, and then it draws an arrow, the path of resistance going up through that cylinder. And engines that have long stroke and short connecting rods side load the hell out of the pistons. And that's Cummins, that's PACCAR, that's Navistar. Detroit and Volvo both have a shorter rod, or a longer rod and a shorter stroke. So we have a more clear path with less side loading of the cylinders. You know, we talk about carbon packing in a Cummins all the time. Well, when you're laying that piston hard into that liner and you're trying to use low drag piston rings to reduce that friction because you're leaning hard into that liner, oil and stuff's going to get past those rings and cause your carbon packing.
Well, and let's think about what you're just saying there. Because you're right. If you can see the picture, it really kind of helps visualize this. But just trust what we're saying. When you say we're side loading the hell out of that piston, so much so that they've designed rings to try to reduce some of that drag. Well, drag and friction, that's our horsepower and fuel mileage we're losing. Just by the design of the engine. We know that when you put more friction against that piston, that's every second of the time this engine is running, that's inefficient.
You're correct. Now, the advantage to that design is you get some pretty fast acceleration of the piston away from top dead center. So it feels a little more responsive to the driver because of that faster acceleration in that portion of the stroke. The problem is it accelerates very fast away from the combustion process, which is never good. So when you go to that longer rod, you lose a little bit of that responsiveness, but you have more consistent speed through the entire stroke. So the piston's not running away from the combustion event, and it's not too slow to push the exhaust out. So, and I think Detroit and Volvo have both really demonstrated this because they seem to have better durability than the rest of them as far as emission systems. From the fleets that we benchmark against, it's significantly better than the Cummins and the PACCAR. And I think a lot of it has to do with that variation in piston speed related to their very short rod with a very long stroke. So there's a lot of things going on there, and I know it's hard to visualize, but trust me, it's all there. The other thing that we kind of miss, or we don't talk about a lot also, is that bottom end, and you've got to come back to the crankshaft in the Volvo because that's like the crown jewel right there. Just massive journal overlap, a massive crankshaft, very stout, very heavy duty. So it can run all day down the road at 900 RPM, and you will not phase that engine. It is not going to hurt it. Vibration levels are going to be very, very low because of the stout crankshaft. And then you've got a piston that is smaller bore, so it develops less G-forces when it's coming down. Onto, as it's cycling down away from that combustion event, it's a controlled speed with less G-force, so you have less vibration issues in the D13 TC crankshaft.
You know, the one picture that really stuck out for me of the pictures you sent over, When we think of like the heavy duty engine, durability, power, torque, what comes to mind in the trucking industry? If that's the engine I'm describing to you traditionally, what engine would everybody say?
Everybody thinks Caterpillar.
Exactly. Everybody would say
Caterpillar,
that's Cat. So there's a picture here of a C15 Cat. So think about the size difference in these two engines too. We're looking at a 15-liter Cat, which is the engine everybody would say that's the beast. That's the engine. It's durable. It's heavy duty. And you look at a D13 Volvo, significantly smaller when you think about it. That's a pretty big size difference between a 15-liter and a 13-liter. And we're looking at the journals. It's not even close. The D13 journals are significantly bigger.
Yeah, bigger than anybody on the market. Nobody's even close. That's something that they've done a very, very good job on, is that bottom end. And even the connecting rods themselves, you can just see it looking at it with a naked eye. You don't even have to get, calipers out to measure anything. They're just beefier. Mm-hmm. And so they can really accommodate this low RPM operation, and it doesn't even break a sweat. I know that with the PACCAR engine, they put a basement on it. It can develop torque at 900 RPM. It's not as much as the Volvo, and they don't want you running it down there all the time. I think the same thing goes with the Cummins. They'd rather see you at a higher RPM level. Now, that being said, you can still make a fairly efficient engine. You're just leveraging different concepts and technologies. So don't take an engine that was designed to run at a more moderate RPM and go out and slap a 226 gear in it with an overdrive, because you're going to be disappointed.
Well, and that's part of
it. You're not going to make the horsepower, and the engine's going to get funky with you.
Yeah, and that's part of the lesson here. We're not saying the Volvo is the only engine you can go out and get fuel mileage out of and make money. We are saying if you're really trying to squeeze every bit of fuel economy you can and keep the emissions healthy, this really is the better design. But it's you can make a lot of money with other engines. Just understand what you have in spec correctly.
Right. If you have been following my work and you're seeing I'm running this 14 speed with a 216 and maybe even a 205 with an overdrive, and you go into the Peterbilt dealer and say, I want this, and they tell you no, don't be mad at them.
There's a reason.
They're telling you this for a reason. There's absolutely a reason for it. And to that note, I am very happy to announce for the guys on the Cummins side that Eaton came out with a new automated 18-speed, and it is a beautiful piece of work. They took a lot of the iShift technology and put into this new 18-speed. Now, you can tell that it was specifically designed to work with the Cummins because it has a taller overdrive. It's 0.70, and then it goes to 0.83, and then into direct. And it doesn't have quite as deep reduction, so you can run a more moderate gear like a 247, and then you're going to be kind of on par with a 231 gear ratio in my Volvo. So they do have a new transmission. They adjusted the steps in the transmission to work with the aggressive downsped gearing. The old 18 speeds had 17% steps. The new 18 speed has 20% steps. And remembering, it's 17% of your rear axle ratio. So when you start to really push the limits on your rear axle ratio and get it down there low, that very close step starts to actually work against you. And that's another reason you really don't want to go into a truck dealer, order a new truck with a manual transmission with that aggressive gearing, because you're going to be doing nothing but, constantly. Your arm's going to fall off.
Exactly.
So, very, very nice transmission out of Endurance. Very, very nice.
So here's one of those times where I'm going to have to change things that I've said in the past. I have criticized 18-speed transmissions for decades. They seemed completely unnecessary to me because nobody shifted them the right way anyway. Why have all those gears when you're not using them hardly ever? It never made sense to me. Well, I can take that back now. If I don't have to shift it, the computer's going to. I don't care how many gears are in there.
Yeah, as long as it's the new Endurant. Now, I'll tell you some of the things that they've done, which is pretty damn cool. It is still a dual counter shaft in the front section, but they did finally get over to the helical cut gears. And if John were here, he would tell you, well, a helical cut gear is not as efficient as a straight cut gear, and he's exactly right. But they will carry more load, so you can shrink them down and make them smaller and balance that efficiency loss out. So they got rid of the straight cut gears, and they shrunk that front section down and got rid of a lot of the mass. They completely done away with the two counter shafts in the back that I always bitched about, and I always took a lot of heat over. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Eaton got rid of it and put planetaries in back, just like the iShift. Right. And they claim that this transmission is mechanically 3% more efficient than the old 18-speed. And that's big. Exactly what I've been saying right along. It is a big improvement. Yeah. Not all in gears. Part of it's in how they're lubing the gears as well. But they've done a very nice job on this transmission. I would encourage people, if you're a Cummins guy and you want to do something downsped, look at that 18-speed. It makes a whole lot of sense. It's not available as a manual. You wouldn't want it as a manual anyway. And I'm sure Cummins always does a nice job with their shift logic and stuff. So it will be very competitive in terms of fuel mileage and pulling power. Those engineers took a look at this and they said, okay, how do we make downspeeding work for a Cummins? I think they've got it figured out. It's not as aggressive as a Volvo, but it is very good for what they have to work with. So hats off to them. They've done a nice job. Good.
Hey, I want to take a step back, kind of set up what this whole show's about and what we do. It's trucking, technology, and efficiency, and we're going to dig deep and find little tweaks here and there and trying to squeeze every bit of efficiency we can out of fuel mileage. We're trying to keep maintenance costs down. Yeah, I had a question on the Trucking Tribe this morning, and I look at this question and I think, what do I even say to this person? So I want to go back and read it and kind of set up. Let me go back and find that. What it is we do here and want to do. I know where it is. Hold on. Okay. All right. So here, and I'm not going to tell you who said this. Doesn't matter. I get lots and lots of questions like this, and I wish I could help more people. It says, I know it's a bad time to look for another truck. That's true. It's a bad time for a lot of reasons. We could go through all kinds of reasons why right this moment is not a good time to be buying a truck. But then it says, but I'm looking at a W9 or a 379, and they all seem to have Cummins or Cats, or is there an engine I should stay away from? I look at that and I think, you've already started off by saying it's a bad time. This isn't a good time to make this decision. And then you want to tell me you're only looking at non-aerodynamic trucks. And I think to myself, I just don't understand this mentality. And I got thinking, what if we did this? What if we said, look, go ahead and buy that W9 or that 379, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold your total fuel cost at 1 more mile per gallon than what you really get. Your buddy just bought an identical driveline, but he put an aerodynamic body on it. He's going to get 1 mile per gallon better than you are. And I've been saying that for 30 years. I don't know if anybody's actually paying attention or they just don't realize how important that is. And then here's what we're going to do. So all year long, we'll keep your fuel price identical to what it would have been if you would have bought an aerodynamic truck. And then at the end of the year, you're going to have to write a check to make up the difference. And roughly today, it's at easily $10,000. So at the end of the year, you have to write one check for $10,000 to make up the difference in all the fuel you burned just to have that body style. How many people would be willing to do that? How many people would write that check at the end of the year and go, oh yeah, no big deal?
Here's a story, a quick story from Al Hemerson, who he bought the Volvo. He went to the iTorque spec. He's having a lot of success with it right out the gate. while he was buying his truck, an acquaintance of his was also buying a truck. And of course, he didn't want an ELD in it. He didn't want any of those damn sensors and none of that bullshit electronics. So he paid some ridiculous amount, like $72,000 for like an 85 Peterbilt with a 3406. I think it was a B.
Oh my God.
And he put another 70 into it.
What?
So by this time, he's got almost as much as what Al had into his truck. They both started running right about the same time. They both have 15,000 miles on the truck. Al's at his 30 days at 8.34. His lifetime's at 7.9. This guy's at 4.5.
Oh.
How the hell do you do that and stay in business?
Oh.
How do you do that?
So now we're talking about at the end of the year, if we kept their fuel price constant all year and said at the end of the year, you have to make up the difference, he'd be writing a check for $30-some thousand.
Oh, yeah, absolutely it would be. There's no doubt about it. I can't imagine he's going to make it to the end of the year, but maybe
there's
he will.
a good
I don't
point.
know.
Yeah, but if we could get people to start looking at it this way, okay, run your truck all year, your cost will be the same as if you would have spec'd it properly, and at the end of the year, you're going to have to write a check to make up the difference. Do you think they would get it then?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it's just like when people pay taxes, it automatically comes out. So you don't notice it, I guess. I don't understand it. But, I would much rather put that money in my pocket, go on a vacation, put my kids through school, whatever the case may be. But, or better yet, buy the new aerodynamic I-Torque Volvo and then go pay cash for your 85 Pete and set it in the garage.
There you go. So any business, every business, you run a business, you know this, we could go spend an awful lot of money. Like I could look at my operation and say, you know what? I'm going to buy every one of our employees a new high-end computer every 6 months. Now, I could do that. I could even justify it a little bit. At least a new computer is faster and more efficient than the old one, right? There's at least it's an improvement. It is better than what I had before. Now, I've been in business long enough to know I could go do that. It would be an improvement, but it's not worth it. I mean, that's just wasting money in the business. Makes no sense to me. In this case, you're buying this truck that is costing you so much more money, and it's not better in any way. I challenge somebody to tell me how that truck... I can come up with one. We have come up with one over the years. If you have to work on that truck, it's a whole lot easier. I get that. But that's it.
Here's the thing that's starting to change, and I really think we're seeing this in our fleet in a major way. As we push that downsped envelope and we hold the heat and the engine during the combustion process, we have, and especially with the wave piston on top of it, the 7-hole injector, we have reduced our maintenance cost so we are right on par with our last round of non-emission engines were cats. And our maintenance cost is right on par with those cats. The only thing is our fuel mileage is about 3 miles a gallon better. We're really, really, and we saw the same trend with cars. You remember back in the late 80s when we really started to get all the emission stuff, and it would give people fits, and everybody was bitching about it.
Garbage.
Through the 90s, it got a little bit better. Now, does anybody go out and buy a new car and go, I don't want any of them bullshit sensors? I'm like, nobody does that.
No,
nobody.
because
and the same thing is.
Even, being a gearhead all my life and always working on things, I'm not sure how to open the hood on some of my vehicles anymore. You just don't have to.
No, I hear you. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Yeah, I had to put some graphics on my pickup truck, and I popped the hood, and I'm like, damn, it's dusty under there. I know. Under there. I've had this thing for 5,000 miles, and I haven't had the hood open on it. I mean, geez, Pete, it's crazy.
Right, but that's where we are, and that's where we're getting there on trucks. We're getting there. We're getting to the point where you're just not going to have to work on these things the way we used to.
And I know this bit of news will probably piss some people off, but I personally see it as a good thing. So the German company that bought Navistar, is it Tata or Tarta or whatever their conglomerate name is? They basically, my understanding is, just handed that off to Scania and said, Scania, you guys go take care of that. And they're going to get some very Volvo-esque powertrains coming soon, I would imagine. They're going to bring over their new straight six, which is very similar to the D13 TC. They have a 13-speed automated manual that has almost the exact same steps. So I would suspect that they're going to have a very, very strong package to offer in the United States before long. Hell, they're even talking about pulling out of Chicago and moving things down to Texas and doing an R&D center and a whole bunch of stuff. So I think my personal opinion, that's a good thing for Navistar. They've struggled here for quite a while.
My next comment was going to be Navistar's been struggling for about 25 years now. Hopefully something helps. Yes. Well, they certainly won't be from lack of engineering skill. You know, they crank out engineers in Sweden like we crank out basketball players over here. It's crazy. Lawyers.
And
lawyers.
Lawyers and basketball players. Yeah, exactly. So, those are guys that I love working with over there. They're very matter of fact. They're very direct. Part of the reason I think Volvo struggled early on was they just couldn't get their mind around some of the things that we done over here and how our duty cycle worked. Not saying that we're wrong and they're right, but there was a difference there that they struggled with for quite a few years. And I've been working on this whole downsped concept with their engineering staff for over 10 years now. 5 years specifically on this iTorque that we're just now introducing, and spent many hours on the phone with their engineering staff, as I'm driving down the road, explaining this, explaining that. And it's been a long, slow process, but I think we've really got something special here with iTorque that's going to change a lot of minds about Volvo. Ed Axline, a guy in Akron, Ohio, right out in your old neck of the woods. He just bought an iTorque 2.16 with 14 speed. Basically a kissing cousin to my Purple Beast that's sitting down at the factory still. And he has just started running it. Now, he had a Caterpillar powered glider kit, 800 horsepower, 264 direct.
Okay.
And, he would run, he'd start in his yard, he'd pick up a heavy loaded trailer, go down to Winchester, Virginia, and he couldn't run a turnpike because it was hazmat, so lots of hills.
Wow.
And then he would
That's a tough run.
Empty the loaded trailer. Yes, very tough. He would empty the loaded trailer out, pick up empty totes, and go to Portland, Oregon with them. And then he would reload and then bring it back to his yard, and that's his loop. That's what he does.
Wow.
And he hooked his 6x2 Volvo up, the plastic truck, and he got hooked up to it and ran it down. And he called me. He goes, it doesn't seem like it pulls as well, but his time on the run was exactly the same. And he got 2 miles a gallon better doing it in the hills with 80,000 pounds.
Wow.
So his run out to the West Coast, he was light enough where he's able to get axle up on the truck and the trailer. Now, he's a small fleet. He's got a couple of newer aerodynamic Pete's, and I don't remember what the nomenclature is, but they're 500s, 336s or 308s. I don't remember what, with 13 speeds. One of his guys, I think, followed him out or went out the next day right behind him, and he was exact same time, but 3 miles a gallon better. So he done 9.1 on that, whereas Pete done 6.1. So he's in process of running this run again, and the way I understood it, and I'll double check with this, but one of his guys was running with him again, and he hit his first fuel up point, and he still had a bunch of fuel, but he fueled it up anyway. And again, he's 3 miles a gallon better than what his 500 Cummins with the 13 speed was. And it wasn't an aerodynamic thing in this case. This is just because that was the aerodynamic Pete, and he's got the gap closed up tight on both the trucks, and he does a good job that way, and he tracks fuel mileage very well too. He's on fuel gauges, I believe. He also does pedal coach and that Sansera. So he's a nut like I am when it comes to tracking the mileage, and he has lost zero in efficiency and picked up 3 miles a gallon.
That's incredible. And I just think that a lot of this gets lost. But here's something to think about. That is a 50% improvement in your single biggest cost of operation. How many businesses in the country have that opportunity? Almost none. I can't think of a business I've ever run where there was an opportunity for me to take my single biggest cost and improve it by 50%.
No, you're exactly right. Mark Rotz is another example of this. He likes to post his IFTA on 9 Mile a Gallon Club over on Facebook. Last quarter, he was at like 10.01. This quarter, he's at 9.59. He only had 3 light loads during the whole quarter that were 18,000 pounds. Everything else was in the 42 to 46,000 pound range.
Wow.
Runs mostly northeast, but does an occasional West Coast trip, and everything was at 65 mile an hour or faster.
Man, that's impressive. That is just...
It absolutely is. That's just knocking it out of the ballpark. There's just no other way to put it. And he's had no mechanical issues with the truck. Just doing very, very well with it.
So, let's put this to some real world stuff, because I got to go find my notes here. I said I had a ton of stuff to talk about. Where is that? Okay, here we go. We've been talking a while about rates dropping and all that stuff, but honestly, if you were going to go try to run your one truck for profit right now, would you look at the conditions today and be worried in any way? I mean, this is not a really bad environment right now for trucking. I know it's clearly much worse than it was last year, but this is not a bad set of numbers right now. No, it's kind of mediocre. Yeah,
and I know people think the world's coming to an end because they're not getting $25 a mile to run a load. But if you look at it in a historical context, I don't know that it's all that bad, really, to tell you the truth. I'm waiting on my purple truck, and I'm not really worried about anything in terms of rates. I know they're not as good as what they were, but they'll definitely be profitable. That's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, I think things are going to get a lot worse than what they are right now. That's my prediction. I don't think this is that bad. But listen to this. I read an article this morning, and it's 3 trucking veterans reveal why they closed their businesses amid the Great Purge. We're already talking about this. Listen to this first one. Back in 2018, when trucking was red hot, Texas native, I'm not going to give his name because it doesn't matter, Mike got famous. If just for a moment. He was as confident as ever. That year, he and his brother founded their own trucking company. He told the Post reporter he was interviewed, for some article in trucking. He was planning on bringing in a serious salary, up to $120,000 a year. That's a pretty serious salary. If you can operate one truck and keep $120,000 of profit, you're doing good. You are. It was possible last year and the year before. You had to work for it, but you could do it. So here's how crazy things got. It says that turned out to be a modest estimate. In 2021 alone, he grossed $375,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of money to generate with one truck, and there is no reason, none whatsoever, that he shouldn't have been able to take home at least $150,000 of that. And I think that's conservative. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree.
He's now out of business already.
Yeah, I don't.
Just last year, he grossed $375,000. Where the hell did it go? Why are you out of business already?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I do know from some of the people that showed up out of Iowa, they said CNN was there and they were wanting to interview these pissed off truckers that are mad at the world. They would not talk to any of the fuel efficient guys that are doing okay. It's just funny. I mean, I've known Al Hemerson for a while, not personally, but I know he's been in the trucking industry for a long time, and he's 15,000 miles into his iTorque here, and he said, I think this is the most money I've had in the bank ever from trucking, just because his fuel mileage is where it should be and should have been all along. And
there you go.
He's not working near as hard. So he's happy in these conditions, where the guy that's getting 4.5, he's just pissing and moaning and crying the blues. And I do feel bad for the guy, but this guy was straight up told, they explained it to him, and I get it, somebody's talking, how do you know, who the hell are you? But man, oh man, it's hard when you went into that eyes wide open into a truck that the majority of people are going to tell you that's a 4.5 to 5 mile a gallon truck, and diesel fuel's what, $5 a gallon.
So in this article, there's another number here. I wonder where the hell we come up with this stuff. I could probably dig here and figure out where they got it from. But they're actually claiming in this article, the break-even cost to run a truck in 2022. Throw out a number. Give me something you think they might be claiming that it costs to run a truck in 2022 per mile.
Oh my! What they're saying, what actually is, I don't know. They're saying what, $1.80?
that if I read that, I would still push back and say I can operate this thing significantly less than that. But if they said that number, I'd be okay with that, because there are a lot of people that are probably spending that much. Their number is $3.27 a mile.
Oh, Jesus.
Where do they come up with this?
They got a hold of some shroom somewhere. I don't know. That's crazy. $3.25 a month.
Gosh!
Wow.
No wonder why they're out of business.
Even if you done everything wrong, I don't know that you could get.
I know.
Get to that point.
Right. I don't think you could. If we tried to spend that much, I'm not sure if we could pull it off.
Yeah, but you know how this goes, especially, and you notice that this guy was a new startup, and all of a sudden, bam, he made $375,000. Probably got a few toys in the garage now, a couple cars that he wanted to buy. Yep. This is the kind of stuff that would just kick you in the ass faster than anything. And when you start small businesses, a lot of people, they commingle their finances, and it's all the business.
It's a mess. Yeah.
So if I was betting money, I bet you there's something similar to that going on in this scenario, because it's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Well, I've actually said for years and years and years, technically, if you just look at averages, it's impossible for one driver to run one truck and actually lose money. I've said it's impossible. You can't go out and spend more money than what it will generate in revenue. You just can't.
Yeah, if you limit it to the trucking only, you would be hard-pressed to do that. That's exactly right.
There would always be a profit left. And when they say, well, no, I'm broke. I know you're spending it all at home. You just don't get it.
Yeah, it's going somewhere else. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So I want to shift gears once today and kind of jump into a totally different topic, but it's kind of becoming the theme of the show, and it does kind of fit. So we're talking about, really tweaking the trucking side of things, making the truck really efficient, keeping our costs down. And that's the whole point of the show. But on the other hand, I think a big part of the show is going to become keeping us and our bodies efficient and maximizing.
No doubt.
Yeah. I like that. There's a real fit there. And I want to come back to it, but we have two calls. They've been on hold for a while, so we're going to grab those. Maybe we'll come back to that topic. Let's go to Washington.
Jackson had,
go ahead.
Left turn lane.
Tony.
I pulled on left lane. I'm in the right left turn lane.
Tony.
I pulled up and I stopped, and I was like, "Fuck!" And he says,
Hey, Tony.
I'm going to follow you, and when you stop, I'm going to...
All right, we're all going to listen. We're all going to listen to Tony's conversation here.
What? He's yelling at me, blah, blah, blah. I mean, before I even knew what I was saying, Yeah.
Now there's F-bombs flying.
You know what I'm saying? It was out. Man, I was like,
Hey, Tony.
like,
All right, I'm putting Tony back in the queue. Brittany, see if you can...
It was getting real there for a minute.
I don't want to embarrass him too much, so we'll put him back on hold, see if we can figure that out. Let's try Arizona. Byron, welcome to the program.
Hey, I wondered if I could have Emerson give me a call. I'll give you my number, Joel, or somebody.
Say that again?
Say it again?
I wondered if I give you my number that you could give it to Ella Emerson and have him give me a call.
Sure. Absolutely. I can do that.
Or how can I contact you?
You on Facebook?
Nope, I don't do Facebook.
No. Let's just send it to my email.
Hang on a second. I'm just checking in. 1000 or 1103.
Don't these people know we're trying to run a radio show here?
16.
The joys of live radio, right? Hey, but this is the real deal here. So
This is the real thing. That is
Okay,
no
I'm
doubt.
back.
All right, go ahead.
okay, here's my email. It's Joel JOEL at alphadrivers-tc.com.
PC, you said?
TC, as in like Turbo Compound or Technical Consulting.
GC, you got it. TC.com. Okay.
Yeah, just send me a message there. I'll get it, and I'll get Al in touch with you. You can talk to him.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. All right, let's try Tony again. Tony.
yeah. Hey, Kevin.
There you are. There you are. Welcome.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks. Anyway, the reason why I called is because I've been listening to you guys. I was talking about slowing down and taking the cruise control off, and I actually drive the truck again because I'm a company driver. But so I started doing that here, for about the past month or so, a little bit before that. And was going up Cabbage Hill here in Oregon, and I had cruise control off, and I'm cruising up the hill, going about 30 miles an hour, and some guy who did not have his cruise control off, he had it on, just ran right in the back of me.
Ouch!
Really?
Yeah.
How do you do that on
was
Cabbage?
Was he texting or watching adult movies, or what was he
Really?
doing here that he didn't have? Paying attention?
His story was, he goes, well, I had my cruise control on, and I saw you. I knew you were going slow, so I started to slow down, looked over. He said he did not slow down. He looked over to his left lane, and there was a car. And he said by the time he looked back up, it was too late, and he just ran right in the back of me.
Wow.
So,
Wow, yeah, I don't know what else to say to that, especially on Cabbage. I mean, Cabbage is a pretty tricky climb. You need to be paying attention. There's a lot of sharp curves on that climb.
Exactly. Yeah, so, he said he'd been driving for 25 years and never had an accident. I was like, I wasn't buying his story.
Boy, that's a boy. He saved it all up for a really good one. Then I guess that's a really rookie mistake.
Yeah, it was, and it gets even worse because I had 10 pallets of yogurt on the back, and 8 of them tipped.
Oh.
And and it gets worse. This is Friday, July 1st when this happened. And so talking to my boss, he's like, well, go ahead and take the load to Denver and have them, unload it and restack it for you. I was like, really?
To
Like, yeah,
Denver?
okay. Yeah, Denver.
That's just right
Yeah,
around
so
the corner.
By the time, yeah. So by the time I got there, the 8 pallets that were, leaning, they were just completely all over the place. It was ugly. So I get there Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, and this is that 3rd of July, right?
Holiday weekend, yeah.
So holiday weekend, get in there. They say absolutely not. You're not taking it. I'm like, that's what I figured. So call my boss. He's like, okay, he's going to call the insurance company, and I have them send a crew out to restack it. So I sat there the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, and then he calls me back and says that insurance company can't find enough people to redo it, so just dumping it in the landfill. It was like,
well, wait a minute. That's a little easier said than done. What do you mean, just dump it in a landfill?
Exactly. So I'm calling around trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this load, and I get a hold of the Rocky Mountain Food Bank, and they said they'd take it. They said, yeah, I could bring in volunteers and we'll unload it and restack it, and whatever was not good, we'll just throw it away and we'll take it. I was like, awesome. This is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. So as I get there, I tell my boss, hey, yeah, I found someone to unload the truck. And he goes, who? And I said, well, the food bank. He's like, oh, no, you can't do that, because of the, said either the insurance company or the shipper or whatever's got something that says that, they're afraid that.
You got to be kidding me. The damn attorneys.
So he said, no. Yeah. So he said, you can't do that. I was like, what? Well, what am I going to do now? And he says, I'll call you back. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, calls me back. He says that there's a tow truck company there in Denver. They said they'd help unload it. So me and this old guy, I'm 60. This guy was older than me, and he could hardly lift his arms.
Great.
And
wonderful.
The story just keeps getting worse.
Yeah. And I have 2 bad arms myself. But anyway, so the 2 of us unloaded these 10 pallets off this truck. 8 of them that were tipped. We had, by hand. I was covered in yogurt.
Ugh.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah, it got out of. Yeah, it took us 3 hours.
What a mess. And here, all you were trying to do was save your employer a little bit of fuel cost.
Yep.
And I've been telling people for 30 years, don't worry about driving slow. Nobody's going to run into the back of you. But I guess once in a while they just might. Once in a while they just might. Hey, I'm going to cut you loose. I just looked at the board and we are flooded with calls. Holy cow. We got to get busy here. We're going to go to South Dakota. Fred, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Joel. How are you guys doing today?
Well, I was looking forward to knocking off early today on Friday, but everybody decided to save their call till the last minute on Friday. So,
yeah, it's been a crazy week for me. But I'll tell you, I run an old 379, the truck that Joel and you guys are beating up on earlier today. But I'll tell you what, you can be profitable with this old truck now. I'm running 60 or 57 most of the time. Hopefully no one runs in the back of me. But my profit right now, mid-year, I'm profiting 98 cents a mile.
That's outstanding.
Nice.
Hey, Fred,
I'm home every weekend. I'm home every weekend, and I run civilized.
I'm glad you called, because while Joel was talking, and Joel talked a lot, I was making a lot of notes. And some of my notes, I'm not going to get to them because I have notes everywhere today. Now we have calls everywhere. But a whole section of my notes was, I was going to address exactly what you're talking about. I just didn't get to it. We had too much going on. I was going to make the comment that I know every time I talk about classic trucks, I make a whole bunch of my listeners crazy. My point is, though,
it's not being crazy, Kevin. No, I mean it can do this right.
Exactly, and I've said it many, many times over the years. If you know what you're doing, you can make money with that truck. You should absolutely go buy one. That's the whole point of being in business ourselves. We get to make our own decisions. But when when I keep hearing from people that the rates are too low, the brokers are ripping me off, the fuel prices are killing me, that's when I start looking at them and going, but you've done nothing to control your own costs. Stop complaining about everybody else.
Right. Well, and I won't parse this with, I've actually been spending a lot more on reducing my expenses, and I'm still making 98 cents a mile.
Right, which is awesome.
You know, I mean, I have a trailer payment. I must have paid, double payments every month at least. But I mean, I might have this trailer paid off by the end of the year, and it's a 2021. So I've been really knocking everything out, and still I'm getting a 98-cent profit. And I color outside the lines a little bit with my finances. So, I mean, if I really tidied it down to where it would, was what it should be, I'm definitely over $1 a mile with classic trucks.
Which just a couple of years ago, we almost wasn't even possible. I mean, the rates just weren't there. No matter how efficient you weren't breaking $1 a mile in profit because the base rate wasn't there to be able to do it. It is now, even with the rates coming down, you can still do that. And like I've said in the past, I bring up the whole efficiency thing only when it's people complaining that it's everybody else's fault that they can't make any money.
Well, I'm also going to say this to everybody listening. I've had 5 weeks off this year already.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
I mean, I took a couple weeks after Christmas. I've taken a couple weeks here and there to go see my granddaughter in New York, and I'm still. I mean, the rates have definitely come down. I'm seeing more flatbed rates in the $2 to $3 range than the 3+ range,
which is still strong. Fine. That's still a good rate. Yeah.
I was running back in the 90s for 90 cents a mile.
Correct.
Right. Exactly.
That's the point I was going to make here. Your numbers are excellent. This calls more a function of your management style more than anything. It's not necessarily the truck. It's how well you manage the business. And obviously, you're doing a very good job at managing your business. And hats off to you.
Here, I grabbed a couple of partials on my way up to the Dakotas because I knew there was something up here. So I grabbed a couple of partials in between. I was lucky enough that I had a multi-stop coming up. And I had the room and the weight capacity to grab a couple partials.
There you go.
Nice.
There you go. All right. Good stuff. We're going to keep on rolling because the calls just keep coming in. Let's go to Wisconsin. Mike, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. Called you yesterday on that GPS.
Yes.
And the whole problem was it had a bad download, I guess, because I called them and they put me through the process. And he says, some reason you had a bad download. You just have to re-download it. And I re-downloaded it, and everything's just fine and dandy.
Excellent. Awesome. Excellent. Glad they were able to help you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I thought I would pass that along. So
well, thank you. I appreciate the feedback.
Okay. Otherwise, you guys have a great day.
All right. Have a great weekend. Let's go to Pennsylvania. Brian, what's up today?
Hey, guys. I haven't been over cabbage in over a decade, but, I mean, aren't there a lot of company trucks that are actually trying to get over the hill that can only do 30?
A lot of them. In fact, the one thing I have to be careful about now that I never used to have to be careful of, and speaking of the crews, look, when I'm in my coach, I really don't care much about fuel economy. I know that sounds odd coming from me. It's just not worth the hassle. I have too many other things to do. This isn't a revenue generating thing. It's a way for me to get around the country and travel and still do the show. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to get better fuel economy on it. So I'll go right up the hill in Cabbage with the cruise on. Except I can't do that anymore because it goes up the hill too damn fast now. I can't. I would seriously flip over on the curves. So I got to take it off the cruise and actually drive it up the hill for that reason.
It would make pretty awesome radio if you drove into the back of somebody running.
especially if I have my new Garmin GPS with the built-in camera to record it all.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Funny.
That would be bad.
Yeah, I'm really bad for that. Bruce would have a coronary because I'm cruise control everywhere. And when you got one of those Pittsburgh Power 12.7 tunes and all you haul is mattresses, you cruise control up every mountain in the country.
That's right. Yeah.
But what was the other? Oh, I don't know. It's a good thing it's Freaky Friday. I just wanted to stir the pot a little bit. I'm surprised nobody really jumped on this. I think this all happened last week. The whole topic of before I get to that, I just got to say, awesome numbers, Joel. I love my paper logs, and I run. Everyone else listening probably runs harder than I do on their e-log, but I like to stop and eat a lot, and it shows. And I just love never worrying about hours. And until the minute Volvo has a truck that I can just log into the sleeper and it'll drive itself, I'm in. Unless it's there you go. So but no, I just wanted to throw that in. I mean, I'd be knocking down 10s without even trying. 100% cruise control. I mean, I'm 30-day average at 8.0 with a glider. So, I mean, based on the math I'm seeing, it's 10 mile a gallon without even trying.
Yeah, most of my guys that come out of gliders with the higher horsepower Detroits and Cats are seeing 2 to 3 mile a gallon improvements. So yeah, you're going to be in that 10 to 11 mile a gallon range, no doubt.
And let's clarify that 8 is still a really respectable number. Really is. That's still a good number.
Yeah.
It's just crazy now that we could actually improve that by 2 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, and I do use cruise all the time, which is not good. Eating because I haul mattresses and then I deadhead back, but whatever. But
yeah, exactly.
But on the Power Hour, the subject of Jake shifting came up, and I know Bruce wasn't a fan, and then it came up again. Well, and I'll just say, everybody that doesn't like Jake shifting, they're just jealous because they can't do it. I mean, you can upshift a lot faster.
Hey, Brian, not only are you Jake shifting, you're shifting all 18 gears of your transmission, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing up that topic. I have a 13, and I wanted 18, but the only reason I wanted 18 is so that I don't have to move the splitter down to low to shift back into low range. I'll just leave it in high all the time.
There you go.
But I forgot about this because I've never personally experienced it. I've never driven an auto shift, but when I found out that the automated manual transmissions actually Jake shifted, I was like, well, there's your proof. There's your proof. It's the way to go. Won't hurt anything.
You just have to know how to do it. That's right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Some of the iShift programming, like if you get into the heavy haul or the off-road logic, it will do that when needed. So to speed up that shift, that's exactly right.
Yeah, so just want to stir the pot a little bit on
There-
Freaky Friday. So
There you
that's
go.
all I got.
There you go. That's all we need. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Georgia. Paul, welcome to the program.
Howdy.
What's on your mind today?
Well, Volvo, but a couple of companies.
Uh-oh. Paul, we're losing you.
Oh, hell, I went in the hole.
There, I think you're
Can you
back
hear me
now. Yeah, try again.
The guy that went from 375,000 gross to being out of business,
Yeah.
I'm guessing he has a whole lot of toys and he forgot to pay the tax, man. Just a guess.
You think? Yeah.
So, my 388, Pete, with the aerodynamics that make Steve Krohn just shake his head and say, I got nothing for you. I'm at 5.5 miles per gallon for my 90-day average.
Nice.
For a car hauler, that's damn good.
Yeah, I'm at, for the start of the year up to the end of June, I was just below 77 cents a mile for fuel, which sounds outrageous to some people, but my revenue sort of compensates it very frequently. But
Yeah, it does.
I still like to keep more. I still like to keep more of my money. Yeah.
Well, and we talk about it all the time. The lower you are in fuel mileage, the more important every 1/10 of a mile per gallon becomes, because it's a bigger savings the worse your fuel economy is.
Yeah, well, I know some guys in the auto transport industry that if they get up to 5, they're happy, whereas if I get down to 5, I'm unhappy.
Exactly. And it's a
Yeah.
huge difference in cost for the year when we're talking about the difference between 4.5 and 5.5.
Yeah. And by the time I get to Pittsburgh Power on Tuesday, I'll be knocking on the door of 1.1 million.
Nice. Nice. Oop.
On a question for Joel,
Mm-hmm.
on a Volvo, what rear end ratio would we stick in it if we went down to 295/60 drive tire, which is just under 37 inches tall?
Yeah, well, you're in luck, because one of the engineers that I work very closely with, he was just given the VAH model. That's his baby now. And so I got a feeling I'm going to start hearing a lot of stuff about car hauling trucks here. So I can get with him and see what his recommendations are on that. And I eventually, probably, if you would like to chat with him sometime, I could probably arrange that, if you're open to it, and you can speak to the guy that's actually in charge of it.
Yeah, well, I kind of like the VNL, but the only thing that worries me about that is the setback front axle. But the VAH, the front axle's pushed out, but
Set forward, correct? Yep.
yeah. So, but I met up with a guy the other day, last Saturday evening, and he had a VNL, and I went over and I was taking pictures of his truck, because the company he works for, which is Main Freight Worldwide, is actually a New Zealand company. So I was taking pictures, and he hopped out, and we started talking, and he's from Yugoslavia originally. Got talking with him, and he's like, "Oh hell, it's too damn hot in here." He says, "Hop in." So that's the first time I've been in a VNL Volvo with the big sleeper, and I don't need that much space, but boy, it was nice. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, you could go VNR as well, but you'd probably be better off VAH. But why don't we set up a time at some point, and you and Dwayne can have a chat about car haulers. I'm sure he would appreciate it, hearing from somebody in the real world, and he's very, very good with math and can, do the weight distribution and all the clearances and all the types of things that you're going to need to know and understand if you're interested in doing that sometime.
Hey, Joel, Dwayne was the one that did our training, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Dwayne is a great guy.
Paul,
Great guy.
he's so good at taking, some of these really complicated concepts with the engine and the gears and just making it really easy to understand. He is really good.
Yeah, because I'm the heaviest I've seen on my steer axle in this truck, and I had a big load on. I was 15,260 on the steer axle, but it's not uncommon to get 14.2, 14.4, easy peasy. And I've got a set forward axle, so that's the only thing that worries me about a VNL. But
VNLs will go to 14.6 without any special permission from engineering, and I believe that they have a 16 and an 18,000 pound front axle as well.
Okay.
So I will find that out. I'm almost positive they do, because we had talked about doing that on my purple truck, because when I'm axle up, sometimes I can really throw some weight forward, and I always want to keep my gap tight. So I do know that we're going to run a bigger set of tires than what you typically see on the fronts of these. So the clearance is there for the wider tire that it'll take to handle that weight. And I'll find out if there is any availability on the 16 and 18,000 pound axle. I believe there is, but I have to double check.
Yeah, because I wouldn't mind having a VNL and put a Fontaine roof on it to lower the height down and everything. So I still need to be able to stick a monster pickup truck up there.
Yep. Also, remember, if you go D13 TC versus Cummins, you're going to save probably 400 pounds up there. Yeah,
there you go.
Absolutely,
that's right.
Okay, that's all I got.
All right, that's all we need.
Transmission will be lighter too.
Yeah, there you go. Let's keep on rolling here, because the calls just keep coming in. Let's go to Virginia. Jason, welcome to the program.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. What can we help you with today?
Good.
So I know now is a really bad time to be buying trucks. It kind of seems to be the day of the classic truck drivers calling in. I'm in a W900. I'm just kind of curious. Do you guys have any recommendations? I'm already changing my driving style. I mean, is there anything that's even worth trying to do? Modifying the truck somehow to make it, get
absolutely
better fuel economy.
Absolutely, there can be. We've had people with classics break 8 miles to the gallon, and again, I just said a little earlier, 8 miles a gallon, still pretty damn respectable. We had one guy that was breaking 9. With a classic.
Wow.
Now, he was running pretty darn slow. He spec'd it really well. There's always something we can do to just about any truck to make it better. And my guess is if you've done nothing, there's probably several things we could do. So it comes down to, does it make more sense to invest some money into this truck to get better fuel economy, or does it make sense to start over? In today's environment, I would say right now I would work on fuel economy on this truck and wait for the used truck market to kind of shake itself out, because prices are coming down almost every week right now on used trucks, and they're going to keep coming down for quite some time. So I would, I wouldn't be looking at things like trying to turn it into a 6x2. I wouldn't be looking at really big, expensive projects, but a fleet air filter, faster an air dog, some aerodynamic improvements, even though it's ugly aerodynamically, something like a flow below still helps, still makes improvements. So, yeah, I would, I'd set a budget, what can you afford, what makes sense, and then I'd start improving this thing.
So one of the things that I was just talking with some of my engineering colleagues about is the tractor trailer gap. Are you running a van, or what are you running?
No, that's another thing that throws a pretty significant variable into my fuel economy. Is I'm running I was going to say, but I've actually got a step deck. So I mean, the shape of my load changes all the time.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and as far as the gap, I mean, I was working in the oil fields. I mean, I was transporting crude oil, to 120, 130,000 pounds, a load. So
the frame is all stretched out. It had a fourth axle on it that I've since taken off. When oil crashed a couple of years ago, I just kind of scrambling to find something to do and land it here. And now cruising around in this thing here, and you guys talk about trucks getting between 8 and 10 miles to the gallon. It just hurts my feelings, man.
Well, there's the best thing. I think I'm right here with Kevin. The very best thing to do is to slow down. It's very, very hard to overcome the aerodynamics when you're essentially driving a brick, and especially that long. You really got to think hard before you put a lot of money into that truck to try to improve things. Now, you will be able to improve it somewhat, and this is a case here where the guys at Pittsburgh Power, this is a good fit for you because they deal with this older iron on a regular basis, and they've had some success with traditional gearing on helping you to improve your fuel mileage. Just be aware that truck is never going to be a 10-mile-a-gallon truck, and I'm sure you're aware of that. But we may be able to get you a mile and a half a gallon better, I'm assuming.
I would think so, yeah.
I would wait for the market to shake out if it were me. I would just slow this thing down as slow as you can possibly stand to drive. Wait for the market to shake out a little bit and then look to see what's out there. Some of these newer aerodynamic trucks, not only do they get better fuel efficiency, they're just a lot easier to drive. The older trucks, you do have to watch the boost gauge, and you get into traffic and you're constantly shifting the truck. And it's just, you're doing a hell of a lot of work. You probably don't realize that you're doing until you step into something newer. That's something that all four of the guys that I'm working with that came out of older trucks and went into an iTorque spec truck, they just couldn't believe it, how hard they were working before versus now. And they don't have to watch the boost gauge. They don't have to pay attention to what gear they're in because they know the truck's going to get it right. And it does take a lot of your workload off you during the day. So that's something else to consider that, the majority of people just completely miss. I'm a truck driver, and that's what I like to do is drive a truck. Well, once the testosterone kind of wears off that, it's really nice going through Atlanta and, just being able to actually pay attention to traffic and not, cranking gears. And it just,
I agree.
There's that. And that's the big reason why I would probably just slow this truck down as much as you can, limit what you put into it, and then look for something a little newer in a few months. If you absolutely love the truck and that's what you want to drive, I would run it over to Pittsburgh and let them guys play with it and see what they can do for you.
All right. Yeah. I've talked to guys up there at Pittsburgh Power, about, trying to get a tune in this truck and see if they could get any more efficiency out of it. And I kind of told them what I was doing already, and they kind of thought that, making any changes, they couldn't guarantee a lot of improvement. Go ahead.
Here's the things I would stick with. I would stick with inexpensive, proven technologies that we know we can recover the cost pretty quickly, even if you're going to end up with another truck in, say, 5 or 6 months when the market shakes out. Things like a fleet air filter. Pick up a couple tenths. You're only spending a couple $100. I don't think I would spend the money for a tune on this truck unless you're going to keep it. The tune's nice, but it's not a guarantee of better fuel economy. Many times it is, as long as you drive it right. But even when you drive it right, you're probably looking at close to a year to break even on the cost of a tune on a truck like this. And I don't think I would be doing that kind of stuff right now. I'd only be doing really quick kind of break even, not really expensive stuff. And like Joel said, your biggest bang for the buck is just slow down.
Yeah, I have a guy that's
I'm already running pretty slow.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've got a guy running a similar duty cycle as yours. He's a flat, but it's a Conestoga, and it's 108 inches wide. He's located in Kentucky, and he runs Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina. He's always up close to that 80,000 pound mark. and his lifetime on this truck, and I think he's like at 70,000 miles on it. His lifetime is 8.67.
That's impressive.
Pulling a Conestoga.
Yeah, that's
and
impressive.
He had the frame lengthened because he has a door in the front of the Conestoga, and he wanted to be able to get on the catwalk of the truck to walk in that front door. So he's not optimal with aerodynamics either, and he's there. Now, he came out of a Coronado with a built 12.7, and the 12.7 was at 550 horsepower. And I'm pretty sure he was at 264 with a 13-speed, 264 rear-end ratio. So, what you would consider optimal for sort of that old-style spec, he's over a mile a gallon better, and he claims that his I-torque at 455 outpulls the 550 Detroit with no problem. So that may give you kind of an idea of what you might expect if you were to look at something new. Trying to find an I-torque spec truck in the used market, that may be a trick right now because they are fairly new. There are probably some floating around out there. If I come across any, I'll let you know. I do know a guy that's got a couple for sale right now that you may want to talk to. It's not I-torque, but it is a down-sped spec. It's what we call the comprehensive shift package. And they do fairly well. They're about 3% less than what the I-torque is running, but still very respectable.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of brings me to another question. What kind of I've heard you mention Detroit, and obviously Volvo is preferred. But are those the two platforms that you'd be looking at? As the market kind of comes down, or is there? I don't know that.
In your instance, if it were me, I'd be looking at who's close to me that can actually work on any particular truck.
That's a good point.
If you've got a Cummins shop right down the road and the guy's, a master tech and he can work wonders with a Cummins, as much as I'm a Volvo guy, if this guy's in my backyard, I'm buying a Cummins.
Yeah.
Just because I know
I agree with
he
that.
can take care of this thing.
Yep, I agree with that.
Everything being equal, I would buy nothing but a D13 TC. It's never that easy, though. So find out, who's in your area, who's very good, who has the good reputation. If you haven't, try to establish that relationship, talk to them, see what they have to say. Do your homework. You've got some time here because you're waiting for the market to come down. Start calling people and asking questions. And, you hear what we have to say on here. You hear what the Pittsburgh Power guys have to say. We generally don't see eye to eye on stuff, but we're comparing apples to oranges. I'm talking very new technology that's right out on the cutting edge. They're very experienced with, some of the older iron. So between the two of us, you should be able to put together a plan that would work.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we've set up the show the way we have. We want to be able to help everybody be more efficient, and we're talking a pretty wide spectrum right now. So I think between the Power Hour and what we do on Fridays, we can help just about everybody with these questions. I got to keep moving along here. We're going to head off to Illinois this time. Sean, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing, man? I emailed you about once a month. I started this 3 months ago. We talked over the winter in Wyoming. I was in Wyoming, actually. And great show today. I want to say that for both you guys. You guys are doing a hell of a job. Yeah, saving money, man. I as you know, I started this in the last week in March. And if I wouldn't have saved any money, I had a part go out. I'm learning every day. I've only been doing this for 2 years, and I was a company man since last March. I had an exhaust modular go out. I didn't even know what the hell that was till now I do. It's like a baffle. $9,000.
What? Wait. Let's take a step back here. An exhaust, what did you say? An exhaust modular?
Modular, yeah. It's through the DEF system.
What truck and what engine? What truck and what engine?
It's the Cummins. It's International, 2019.
Joel, what is an exhaust modular?
It's probably the one box, I'm assuming, the exhaust module.
Oh, got it.
It's a baffle.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
The flow down the DEF. and it about killed me. And then the kingpins went out, and then I had to get new tires, and like, you're looking at almost $15,000.
Stop. How many miles are on this truck?
Right now, when I bought it, was 411. Now it's got 446.
Okay, so here's a clue. I haven't had to talk about this idea in a long time. When I wrote a book about how to get started as an owner-operator. There's one whole long chapter about how to buy a used truck, what you should be looking for. And one of the things I talked about, and I haven't said this a lot, but I have a really thorough front-end inspection done by somebody who really knows what they're looking for. Somebody like Chad, most of the MD alignment guys would be good for this. And here's why. Many fleets today have almost gutted their maintenance programs. They do almost nothing to these trucks anymore. They push their oil changes out as far as they can, which means they're pushing their grease out as far as they can. They just skip all kinds of maintenance. And the reason they do it, it actually makes sense for them. They're going to trade that truck at 400 and some thousand miles.
Yes.
And they can skip all of this maintenance, and it never affects them. It will only affect the next buyer of the truck. The reason I tell people to do a really good front-end inspection is that's one of the first places poor maintenance will show up. There is no way we should lose kingpins at 400,000 miles.
So one of the fleets we benchmark against, that is exactly their strategy. They order all of the non-serviceable items in the truck. For kingpin bushings, they use a polymer instead of a bronze kingpin. So they don't have to grease the front. They don't want to touch it. Right. They do not grease the front of that truck the whole time it's in their possession. They try to trade out at 350,000 miles, and they don't want anybody having to crawl underneath that truck. They know that they lose their warranty at X mileage, and they spec with all these non-serviceable freaking parts. The next guy that's into this truck, you're going to rebuild that truck. Unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be pretty.
The other question, I email Kevin about once a month. And, make a long story short, is the same truck, just different year, same mileage, went for $56,000. I paid with a $5,000 warranty extra on it, $106. And I don't know if the market. Yeah, the market. They said that's where the market's bearing right now, and they're still strong. They said they could take it to. Actually, they gave us like $25,000 off the truck, and they said if something
they didn't.
Whatnot,
no, they didn't.
No, I know they didn't. They still had a 17%.
It sounds good though.
Yeah, I did. I did the math. 17% interest, they're still getting their money.
Hey, by the way, just so everybody's aware, we're raising our price on truckingtribe.com and healthytribe.com. Instead of $3 a month, it's now going to be $100 a month. But I'm such a great guy, I'm going to give you a $97 a month discount.
You are one hell of a guy.
That's a hell of a reach around.
That's right. That's right. Oh man!
But I was too caught into it. Not to I guess patronize Kevin. He told me to stay out of it. I was too far into it. You had to stay with the company for a year, and I stayed there a year and a half. Actually, when I first started trucking, Kevin, obviously listen to his podcast and all the other stuff. He wanted you to stay at a company for a year before you just go out and go buy a truck. You might not know what the hell you're doing, or so on and so on. So I jumped into the program, and I got 26 months left with the truck paid off. So it's not like a 5-6 year I got to stay here. Give me an idea where my rates are at with the truck. I left Iowa, and I'm going to Fort Lauderdale. They give me $1,500 in fuel surcharge, and to the truck with the 75% already. What I'm going to get, I'm going to the truck. What I bring home will be $4,100. So if I keep it to the, go ahead.
Yeah, you're just at that point where you've got so much invested into this. I think we have to take that risk that you can finish this thing out and end up owning it.
That's the plan, and I'm not. Let's hope nothing else happens. But if I didn't have any money saved up, the guy that paid the 300,000. I just couldn't imagine where the hell it went. I couldn't imagine because there's an old.
And that's the difference. You've made some mistakes. We all do in the beginning, but you've done enough things right that I think if we can get through this next year or two, you get this thing paid off, you're going to be in better shape than most guys. I tell just walk away. You've got enough into this, and there's enough potential. Get through this next 2 years, you'll be in good shape. Let's. Mark, did you hear us talking about you? We're going to Ohio.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Joe. It's Mark. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
There.
Good. We'll talk about what you guys don't talk about is the steering wheel, is dynamic steering, how I just wear out my pinky because it goes straight as an arrow. It never wanders.
What's this dynamic steering stuff you're talking of?
Dynamic steering. Yeah, it's an electric assist motor that sits right on top of the steering gear. It looks like a big old donut, and it's got a super fast computer on there, and it gets pitch and yaw and crap from the truck ECM. And if you're catching a side wind, it'll automatically counter steer the truck against the side wind without you having to do anything. It varies the weight of the steering depending on how fast you're going. The slower you get, the lighter the steering gets. The faster you go, it adds a little bit more weight into the steering, so it's easier to track straight down the lines. And what's really unique with this system is that Volvo couples that with an actual front sway bar, which none of the other manufacturers offer on their trucks. So you have a front sway bar that reduces that cab rocking motion, and you've got this really nice electric assist on top of the hydraulic power steering. That's just an absolute dream to drive.
Nice.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's great when you're hitting a railroad track or a bridge embankment when you're going across. You know how it pulls the steering wheel to the left and right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even do that. It just goes right straight over anything.
Nice.
Yeah. Essentially, it is a smart. It's a smart version of the Safety Plus.
I was just going to say, it sounds like an electronic version of the Safety Plus.
Yes. It's Safety Plus with a brain.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you were talking earlier about the trailer gap. So, like everybody says, like, oh, you got to slow down. In my case, I speed up and still get double digits. But yeah, my gap is probably right at 35 inches. So
that's back of cab to the front of the trailer. So at the edge of the fairing to the radius, you're probably in that 13 to 15 inch range, I'm assuming.
It's close. I had to move that grab bar. I had to put it in move it in.
Yep.
Yeah. So turning a corner with the steering wheel all the way turn. My steering wheel doesn't go over 50 degrees. So turning a U-turn is not a problem. It's backing up is the problem. So
gotcha.
You got to be very careful so you don't hit the bat wings and.
Yeah, but
yes, it is.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I was just talking with Dwayne about the aerodynamic stuff, and every 12 inches at 55 mile an hour to like 65, there's a range in there. You're looking at plus minus 10 horsepower it takes if you move that trailer back 10 inches. At over 70 mile an hour, it's closer to 20 horsepower just to overcome them big gaps. And so this is essentially free to do, and if you have the front axle capacity to keep that gap tight, close it up, because that's by far the biggest bang for your buck you're ever going to get.
So it's interesting that we're talking about this right now because Matt just sent a picture over to me. Matt happens to be at Steve Krohn's right now, and they're doing some pretty major aero work to his cab extenders here. Trying to see exactly what's going on there. Yeah.
He needs a lot of help.
Yeah, looks like he's tightening up that gap quite a bit.
Good. Yeah. Good. When I do pull heavy, a lot of people on the 6x2 don't realize that Even when I pull 46,000 pounds, I mean, it's so much easier to scale because you don't have to worry about the front axle. As long as your tires can support the weight, as long as you're not over 34, and it's real easy to slide the tandems on the trailer to get the weight where you need it. And it's easy breezy pulling heavy with a 6x2. A lot of people think that you can't do it, but I enjoyed the challenge, but I never had problems other than some scale masters like, back that thing back up and put it back on the scale.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Because it wants to check your tires to see if they're H-rated. They don't even care what kind of axle, as long as your tires can support the weight.
Yeah,
that's all they care about.
I don't know why we didn't do more to solve this problem a long time ago. It wouldn't have been that hard. I don't know why we fought with this front axle weight, why we just didn't put heavier components when we needed them. And, we're still fighting with this, and it's easy to spec away from this problem.
Here's why. In the past, we used stacked leaf springs, and stacked leaves versus parabolics rode hard, and that's why
true.
the Kenworths and the Peets had that set forward front axle. So if you would go to a 14.6 with stacked leaves, you would probably crack all your teeth and push the kidneys right out of your back. You know what I mean? It's pretty rough.
You mean
put it on parabolic?
You mean I'm going to feel like I'm back in my GMC Astro cab over?
Yes, exactly. And that's what you had under that truck. You
that's
had
right.
stacked, and they were probably 12,000, so it wouldn't catapult you through the front window on that truck. But
right.
Yeah, that's why. That is exactly why this is now just becoming a thing. Most drivers are brainwashed into thinking you can only put 12,000 on the front, which is not true. And most salespeople believe you can only put 12,000 on the front, which is not true. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of the 14.6 and possibly even 16,000-pound front axles on trucks.
I mean, the limit is actually just our single axle limit, right? Couldn't we put 20,000 on a
20,000? Yes.
Yeah, we can put 20,000 on it. Yeah.
Oh, definitely a ride like hell.
Well, no, think about this. So I talked to the guys at Prevost, and they put 20,000-pound front axles under some of the coaches.
Yeah.
Now, most coaches nowadays are independent front suspensions, and so they ride a lot softer. But there are a few of them out there where they still use the parabolic at 20K, and it rides just fine.
Oh. Yeah.
So, yeah, they're out there. You don't see them very often, but it's out there. That technology is available. I just think it's, for so long we've been brainwashed. It's 12,000 legal. Nobody even thinks to ask about it.
Exactly.
But the other thing I wanted to come up with on the Mission trucks, now I just turned about 170,000. I have not gone through one regen.
Nice.
Yet. Not even one. I have had maybe 2 or 3 passive regens, but as a regen, no, it has not occurred.
Good.
And you still have the first generation engine on there, and so it's excellent. When you finally get out of that truck and go to a Gen 2, you're not even going to see them passives. They burn that clean. It's amazing how good they are.
Wow.
Yeah. It's even the oil sample on here. It's unbelievable. So
excellent.
It almost looks like new oil.
That's we are seeing.
Engines do.
We used to talk about the Cat being the one engine where you pulled the dipstick out, and even after a lot of miles, you could still see color in the oil. The Detroit changed the oil, turned the key, and it's black. By the time you get around to pull the dipstick out again, I'm hearing all kinds of Volvo owners now say their oil just looks clean for a long time, and the samples are just incredible.
Yeah, the engine is very tight, and like I said, this truck doesn't idle, and I got the same concept. It's like as soon as I pull up, it turns off. It doesn't need a run. So
excellent.
The only time it runs is when it has to run down the street.
There you go. There you go.
So I just,
All
great
right.
show, guys.
All right, thanks. Good
awesome
stuff.
Numbers.
Yeah. All right, Joel, two topics I just want to touch on. I don't know how much time we want to spend on these, but
Sure.
One, I don't know how I missed this. You know, we've been talking about AB5, and AB5 is now law in California. And the owner-operators in the ports are not taking it well. They have shut down the Port of Oakland. They're protesting, and they've shut it down for a couple days now. And I think they're back there again today. And they're saying, we will not leave here till AB5 till we get an exemption. So we'll see what happens out there. But here's something that surprised me, and I'm just not sure how I missed this. I got to go back and find this article. I have too many notes going on here. Why can't I find the article I need? Oh, here we go. All right. Inc. magazine. New rule could make it harder for small businesses to hire contractors. So AB5 basically makes it illegal to lease a truck to a trucking company. That just goes away. So that affects about 70,000 owner-operators in California that are leased to carriers. That's now illegal in the state of California. They will have to go get their own authority, become carriers, and then work with brokers. That's a big deal, a really big deal, but it's just California right now. Well, I've been talking about the fact that there is a federal bill. In the House, it's called the PRO Act, and it's passed the House. It got stalled in committee in the Senate, and I've said we have to make sure a law like that never goes through. Imagine if the entire country, if all the owner-operators lease to a carrier, if that becomes illegal. I can't imagine what that would do to our supply chain right now. So, but I wasn't too worried about it because I don't see it getting passed in the Senate. So I don't think they're going to make a law out of this. So, but I'm reading this now and it says the Biden administration plans to change a Department of Labor rule that determines which workers are employees and which are contractors. And it turns out as required by law, the Department of Labor solicited public feedback on the regulatory changes and held 2 public forums late last month. June 24th, employers had an opportunity to make comments, and workers had an opportunity on June 29th, and now the Department of Labor is just going to make a determination. They're going to do this without passing a law? They're just going to do this with another agency, the Department of Labor? That's insane.
So this is because there's going to be no stability one way or the other. I mean, if they want to do this, make it a law.
Make it a
and then
law.
we'll all deal with it. At least we know what the rules are. They do this shit, and nobody's going to know what the rules are, and nobody is going to want to get in a truck. Period. Because you're not going to know. You get a new leadership in the House and Senate, it's all going to change again.
Exactly.
And it's just going to keep flipping back. And this is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I cannot believe this is more of this crap that we ignore our democracy. A democracy works because we get to vote for the people who make the laws that affect us. But this government has gotten away from that. Congress does nothing anymore, and they just use agencies to set new rules.
Yeah. Now you know what the oil people are kind of going through. You know, they demonize them and make them look like villains, but they've been dealing with that crap for a long time. You know, subsidies, yes, subsidies, no. They never know what's going on. Just make a rule, make it a law, so everybody's playing by the same rules, and then we'll deal with it. But this will be crazy if they do this.
Yeah, you know, if they make it a law, then we have some control. We get to vote for the people who make laws. I didn't get to vote for anybody that works at the Department of Labor.
Correct.
Oh, that makes me.
And that's what they do. You know, the politicians that you have to vote for, well, you know, the agency done it, and I didn't have anything to do with it, and yada, yada, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
that's crazy.
And listen to this. So I just said the owner-operators are protesting in the ports, and they've basically shut it down. Then listen to this headline. Port of Oakland urges owner-operators to end AB5 protest. They're asking them not to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You destroyed my business. And here's their reasoning. So let's remember, AB5 destroyed these people's businesses. They had a business, and now their business is illegal. That's a big deal. And the port is saying, could you please stop protesting because you're harming the businesses of the port?
I'm
Screw you!
They didn't ride around in a carriage yelling, "Let them eat cake."
Exactly.
You know?
Screw you! I don't care if I'm hurting your business. You destroyed mine.
Jesus. Yeah, that's going to get nasty out there. And honestly, you can't blame the guys. I mean, you're right. You just stripped their livelihood from them.
Can you imagine? Some of these guys have been doing this for decades. This is how they raised their families. This is how they've lived. And you just come in and, again, stroke of a pen, you're just out of business.
That's nuts. It really is. You really have to feel bad for those guys out there. It's I don't know. I don't agree with all the rules and the regulations the way they are now. I think some things need to be changed.
Sure.
But to do it in the way that they're doing it, I think is a horrible way to go about things.
And the fact that this might be federal without even Congress doing anything really makes me a little crazy.
Problematic.
Yeah, it is.
Because what that's really going to do is it's going to spur Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts to adopt this stuff really fast.
Yep.
And so you're going to have it on both coasts and in the middle of the country. And from there, it's going to be very difficult to stop.
What a mess. All right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I agree.
We'll keep an eye on that. One more thing. How are you liking your watch?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wore it for a couple weeks, and I am allergic to the band on that thing. It literally peeled the skin off on my wrist when I took the band off. So I got to get a different band for. Yeah, I got a perfect little stripe right around my wrist, and it just peeled the skin right off my.
Interesting.
So I'm assuming it's just the band. I think I need to get stainless steel, and we'll see what happens. I've been meaning to get one. I just been busy with a bunch of other things going on, and I need to get one here before I get back in the truck. So I'll see if I can find a stainless steel band for it. But yeah, it was pretty gnarly when that thing came up. It's like, what the hell? So,
yeah, holy cow.
Yeah, because I was trying to wear it as long as I could, track everything. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to take this thing off. I'm just going to wear it. And Jesus, I'm not doing that again.
So, I talked about the fact that, that's going to be a part of the show. I think all three of us, can really work together on some of this. But I read an article this morning, and I don't know why I'm shocked, but I'm shocked. So I'm going to give you a list of 5 health criteria. Here's the 5. BMI less than 25. These are what we're shooting for. BMI less than 25. Okay, check for me. Check on my BMI is less than 25. Or your waist circumference, and I can't remember if this was or, so I got to go back and look. But waist circumference, 88 centimeters for females, 102 centimeters for males. The problem with that is that I can't believe they just did a straight, this was some sort of a study, by the way, that they did a straight waist measurement. It should have been height to weight. Obviously, somebody who's 6 foot is going to have a bigger waist than somebody who's 5'5". But it doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. I don't know why they use that, but we'll go with BMI under 25. Fasting blood glucose under 100 and A1C under 5.7. Total cholesterol divided by HDL, which is our total to HDL ratio, should be under 3.5. And blood pressure under 120/80. And no history of cardiovascular disease. Those are the 5 criteria we're looking at right now. Now, none of those are anything really extreme, right? We're not saying you have to be able to run a marathon and bench press 300 pounds. We're just saying if you meet these 5 criteria, you would be considered metabolically healthy. Does that make sense so far?
Sure.
What percentage of adult Americans do you think meet this criteria?
3?
You're not far off.
3%?
6.8%.
Yeah, I was going to say not many are meeting that. Nope. We eat way too much sugar. Sugar in everything, yeah.
Only 6.8% of Americans are considered metabolically healthy.
Yeah.
That is
well, I wouldn't make it
so
because of my
bad.
heart valve.
Oh, that's right. You do, but that was a genetic thing. You couldn't even do anything about that. But you're right.
I couldn't do nothing about it, but
that would disqualify you.
It would
Didn't even
disqualify
think
me.
about that.
Yeah, I would make everything else but the heart valve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I was shocked. I mean, I think I would have thought maybe 15 to 20%. I would have thought that was horrible. But I can't believe it's not even 7%.
We had a company function not too long ago, and we were out in this big tent and just watching everybody eat. You know what I mean? And you just got to shake your head.
I know.
It's like, man, every single thing that was brought to this function was just loaded with sugar and carbohydrates. I'm looking at that stuff going, how in the hell, And everybody there, all the older drivers there, the first thing they want to start talking about, well, I got to go to the doctor for my diabetes. I got to get this checked.
It's all they talk about.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes. Yep.
Oh.
Yep. So I don't know. You feel bad, but it is what it is, I guess. So.
I know.
And of course, nobody wants to hear you preach about it. If somebody will ask me, I will talk about it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
We did have one guy that was in trouble health wise, and he asked me about it, and got him on just eating the meat, and man, his stuff cleared up right away. His doctor was just shocked. He was on all these different medications for blood pressure, for diabetes, and the doctor was telling him, if you don't get this cleared up, you're not going to be able to drive. And,
right.
So he asked me, and I said, just eat meat. Forget about what everybody is saying.
That's right.
Just eat meat.
Yeah.
And he's like, really? I said, yeah, just do it.
Right.
And yeah, it worked. So it was cool.
It is. Now, I just thought of something. The average in America is 6.8%. Your guess was 3%. I'll bet you are correct for truck drivers.
Trucking in, yeah, because that's what I was basing it on.
Yep.
I was just had that visual in my head of everybody sitting there, and I'm thinking there wasn't,
right.
3 people out of 100 in there that would have made that, not even close.
Right.
So, and it's the kids today. Those are the ones that you would think would make it easy. There aren't many kids today that would make it. In that 10 to 15-year-old range,
they won't.
Most of them wouldn't make it.
They won't.
Yep.
You're right. That's scary. That's really scary. All right. Boy, we were all over the board today. Anything you want to close with?
Nothing I can think of right off the top of my head. Hopefully we'll be getting my truck fairly soon. We're going to do some marketing and media stuff with it, which is kind of exciting. I may be out in your neck of the woods doing some filming. If I am, I'll get a hold of you.
Yeah, definitely.
But, nothing earth-shattering. I guess from the trucking point of view, there's some cool stuff coming out from all the manufacturers. You just have to understand how to use it, and our thought processes that we used, just a decade ago are not going to apply. And, the whole theory of high horsepower is money in the bank, that was somewhat true at one time. It will not apply anymore as we start to optimize gearing for terrain. You just don't need all the extra horsepower. It becomes wasteful. So do your homework. If you buy new, do your homework, regardless of the brand. I know when you're in a position to buy a truck, it's exciting and you want to jump on it and get it done. But definitely talk to people, do your homework. If you're doing something Volvo, don't be afraid to reach out on Facebook or over on Trucking Tribe. I'm willing to help anybody that I can. So
excellent.
And I don't know.
One more
rest
thing.
of life, stay away from sugar.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. One more thing. Last week, did you and I talk about the book, The End of the World is Just the Beginning?
It was not last week, but the week before we did.
Okay. Did you ever get a chance to read it?
I just got started on it, and my better half had to have kind of an emergency surgery done, and I was tied up with that for the last week.
Sorry.
And she had a appendix taken out when she was young, and she had some adhesions in there, and stuff got glued together, and so it was
that'll happen.
Yeah, one of those deals.
So since I've read the book, I keep watching headlines, and I'm shocked at how many headlines are fitting what that book was predicting. And there was another one this morning. You know, we seem to be under the impression that, like, China's going to take over the world. You know, the U.S. is failing at everything right now, and we're so afraid China's going to become the new global superpower. They're going to take over the world. And this book says the opposite, that China is in real trouble when you look at, you know, the way he lays out where we're going in the world. He says China's in real trouble, and he says the biggest reason is because they are hyper-financed. Like, they have borrowed so much money. So here's the headline that I'm reading: China in distress. Economy suffering rapid slowdown as systemic problems surface. And let me see if I can find one of their...
I'll tell you another thing that matches up with that. I just seen this morning that oil exports from Russia to China and India dropped by 30%.
Yes. Yep.
So that should tell you something's going on over there. Yeah.
China has a big problem in that they have to import all kinds of stuff to keep their economy going, and they're hyper financed, and it looks like it's about to crash.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And again, you know, history repeats itself time and time again. And for China to dominate the world, yeah, they've got a lot of people. But if you look at what the Russians have done in Ukraine, how they've just thoroughly gotten their asses handed to them militarily, all of China's military, or most of it, is based on Russian tech.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't bode well. And the stuff that's not based on Russian tech, they stole from us.
Right.
So you got to believe we already know exactly what. So I hear the bullshit that we hear on the news that, oh my God, China's going to take. I don't think there's a hope in hell. They'd have a hard time getting into Taiwan. If we really wanted to deny them, we could deny them.
The other thing they talk about... I don't
think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, they talk about how their Navy is huge. They've got this giant Navy. Except when you study their Navy, they don't have any ships that can operate much more than about 500 miles away from their home ports.
Yeah, they have virtually zero force projection. That's exactly right. And that's the one big thing they're trying to work on. So could you imagine the expenditure they'd have to put out to build 10 aircraft carriers like we run?
Right.
I mean, come on. That's going to take years and years and years if you don't go broke in the process. The Russians couldn't do it.
Oh, no. The Russians wouldn't have a chance. And the Chinese right now, if they're already so hyper-financed, and there's no way they can build out like that.
Yeah, I don't think so. They're going to be the power in Southeast Asia, no doubt. And they're going to give Australia fits on some things. But as far as global domination, it ain't happening.
Yeah,
not going to happen.
All right, we'll talk some more about that when we get John back and you guys finish up the book. Lots of stuff we'll be talking about.
Yeah, I'll be back in the truck starting next week, so I'll get a chance to listen to the book in detail. And then what I'll do is I'll get some of the stuff out of the history channels that I listen to, and then listen to your book, and then go back and listen to them, and probably will really start to connect a lot of dots.
Sounds good. All right. We're going to wrap this up and head on into the weekend. So, Joel, as always, thanks. Great stuff today, and we'll do it again next week.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll talk again.
All right.
Thanks, Kevin.
Take care. Be safe. Be profitable. Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey. We'll see you on Monday.